May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be ever pleasing in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I feel a bit like Sophia from the Golden Girls. Picture it. Philadelphia, Center City, 2016. I am serving as intern at Lutheran Church of the Holy Communion, which is right smack dab in the middle of the city. I would walk from where the parsonage was to church every morning for work. And I always walked past this one movie theater, the Philadelphia Film Society's Roxy Movie Theater. It's a very small one. It has 3 screens. The screens themselves are not huge, but it supports local nonprofit that is the Philadelphia Film Society and their film festival they put on every year and everything else. So I often tried to see movies there just because then the money wasn't going to a huge conglomerate, but going to support this local nonprofit. In the month of December 2016, something interesting happened. As I was walking, I noticed the 3 movies that were playing. The first was called Collateral Beauty. Yes? Collateral Beauty. It had Will Smith in it, starring as a businessman who has had so much success in his life but wants to figure out or find something deeper. You know, one of those feel-good, kind of comes out of the holiday movies. It was not well reviewed. I did not see it. The next movie that is advertised is Fences, which is a film adaptation of the play by August Williams? Something like that. Sorry, I should remember that. But it's an adaptation of his play. It's all about an African-American family, working-class family, dealing with the struggles of their life and the struggles of their marriage. It starred Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. Viola Davis would go on to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for this part, even though really she was Best Actress. They put her in the supporting actress category. I don't know why the rules are as they are. But that was a brilliant film. I recommend seeing it if you haven't. Finally, the last film that was being advertised, that was in the posters, was Hidden Figures, which starred Janelle Monáe, Tahari P. Henson, and Octavia Spencer as 3 women who worked at NASA and helped launch our first men to space, and also all 3 African-American women. That is a brilliant film. It is a sin that Tahari P. Henson did not get nominated for Best Actress that year. I'm still upset about it. I hold a grudge. I highly recommend you go see that movie if you can. It is a great film. What was interesting about it was this was the first time, in all the times I walked by there, in the whole year and a half I lived there, that all 3 posters featured black leads. Every single one of them. Each and every central character of every movie was African American. And it occurred to me that doesn't happen too often. And it occurred to me that for once I was walking into a movie theater and they were showing 3 movies that weren't anything about me or looked like me. Not only was it 3 movies about African Americans, all these African Americans were successful. They were scientists, engineers, mathematicians, good working class families, businessmen. Not one slave, not one maid, not one criminal, as too often is the only parts that are available to those African American actors. I read up a bit, and as Hidden Figures was coming out, an article was released about how important the film was because it showed 3 strong black women who were in their careers and doing amazing things, helping get men to the moon, and what kind of representation that meant for the African American community. To be able to have a little girl go to the theater and see someone who looks like her doing amazing things. Because I often take for granted that I'm going to go to the movies and see people who look like me doing amazing things. Don't think twice about it. But if you go to the movies today, think about how many stories are being told, and think about what stories are being told, and what representation there is there, and how those stories are told, and who's telling them. Because representation matters. And it may seem small, But when the world around you is constantly telling you that this is the only story you have, this is the only story we can tell about you, and you don't have that diverse range of ideas of what your life can be, and you start falling into those patterns, don't you? It's hard to imagine that you can do anything else. I bring this all up because of a line in today's gospel. It's a rather important line. It's one that comes up all through Advent, and a lot of people quote it because it is beautiful. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The season of Advent, the season of Christmas, is often focused on this idea of the light coming into the world, of the light conquering darkness, about coming light into the world and how darkness will be banished and put away. Light overtakes darkness. That's often how we frame the conversation. And recently, there are some scholars and theologians in our church who have called this into question, most especially some of our scholars and theologians of color. They've lifted up how this language can be damaging and sometimes even hurtful to someone whose skin is dark. The constant refrain of light battering dark, of light besting dark, of light belittling the evil that is darkness. But you can see how that can create a negative connotation. And we often associate dark with evil. The bad guys are always dressed in the dark colors, and the good guys are always dressed in the bright colors. Darkness and nighttime is something to be feared. Who knows what's in the shadows, whereas light is comforting and warm. Dark clouds are a foreboding storm, but the sun gives life and light. We often want to make that assumption: dark, bad, light, good. Yet at the same time, if you look at all those examples, we know plenty of good people who wear black all the time. We know that we cannot rest and rejuvenate without darkness and nighttime. We need that rest in our lives. And although the sun can bring life, it can also scorch and burn. And without the rain that comes from the dark clouds, there will be no life. The point we're trying to get at is darkness is not inherently bad. And light is not inherently good. Yet sometimes in our liturgy and our worship, especially during Advent, we can reinforce that stereotype that dark is bad and light is good. And which can then ever so subtly or very overtly find its way into how we think about race. Just like in the movies, if someone constantly goes around saying you can only play these parts, if someone keeps coming to worship and hearing dark is bad and light is good, how will they walk away feeling from our church? How will they walk away thinking about themselves? We must remember that words have power, and the language we use matters. One thing we can look at is what I've been saying for weeks in the Eucharistic prayer, if you've been paying attention. At the beginning of the Eucharistic prayer, we go through many of these blessed are's. Blessed are you for Bappada. Blessed are you for the openness to Mary's will. Blessed are you. And one of them is, blessed are you in the light and in the darkness. Because God is present in both. God is everywhere. God does not see a false dichotomy between light and dark, because God has used both light and dark to break into our world and show God's presence. God may have led the Israelites with a pillar of fire by day, but it was a pillar of cloud and darkness. Fire by night, cloud and darkness by day. God showed up to Samuel and said, Samuel, will you answer the call in the dark of night, not in the brightness of day? Jesus prayed in the peace and darkness of Gethsemane before he headed to the cross to die. God is just as present in darkness and in light. So when you hear darkness and light language used in the church, consider how you're hearing it. Consider how it's being said. And what are the connotations that can come along with it? Because remember, God has blessed both. And the words we use matter.